conversation with Sriharsha Majety, the co-founder and CEO of Swiggy, Group CEO of Swiggy rather. Thank you very much, Harsha, for talking to us on Money Control. I know it's really, really hard to get you on camera, so thank you for doing this. In fact, some would say you kind of stay below the radar when it comes to media and interviews. So tell us if it's the impending IPO that's brought you to Davos.
IPO, one IPO. As we've maintained, we have an aspiration to be a public company one day, but unfortunately, I have no more details to offer at this point.
Right. Tell us about, Swiggy in 2024 vis-a-vis Swiggy in 2023. I remember last year you had sent out a letter detailing goals for the company, what you want to do. Tell us about where you are today as a company.
No, as a company, I think the way the company looks has also changed in the last year. I think, yes, the biggest change is that it is a lot more diversified as a business than it was earlier, all because of, let's say, the rapid growth of Swiggy Instamart and as well as the dine-out business over the last 2 years. So the business looks a lot more different. From a mission statement, we continue to be working on behalf of consumers and give them unparalleled convenience. But when you look at the business, there's an increasing share of, let's say, the Instamart business in overall revenues. And somehow it's also the growth driver for the overall group. Because food delivery continues to grow, but obviously at a slower clip than it would have in the past because there's a lot of penetration that has happened. But I think, Instamart quick commerce, it's a sunrise category. So that is going to be a big driver of the overall growth for revenues for us in the next few years.
Yeah, in fact, I was just coming to that. Instamart in particular seems to have grown really well. It's captured a good chunk of the market. I don't know if it's number one or number two.
We don't comment on share numbers.
Right. But, in your view, what has worked for Instamart? What's different from other players? Because we have seen pain as well in the quick commerce, space this past year.
Well, I think if you look at it, Chandra, India is the only country where quick commerce is broken out and also continued. It broke out in a whole lot of countries globally in 21, 22. But a lot of changes have happened over there and there aren't as many companies serving consumers as there were earlier. But in India, I think not only is the category really powering like e-grocery overall, this is how Indians are buying grocery online. But I think all the players have also been learning from each other, getting more profitable. And I think it's now just a question of when and not if, because there were so many questions asked in the last 1.5 years about quick commerce. But I think that's great about how it's playing out in India. I think there are the challenges, I think. What are the challenges? I think it's a very large category. I think anyone about 13 years with the money to pay wouldn't go through even a few weeks without a need for such a service. Because you want your toothpaste sometime, you will want some fruits if you ran out at home. So the plethora of categories where need states keep coming. So I think this is the beginning of a very, very long growth wave. We've talked about it even in the past. And at this point, I think penetration-wise, I think it can still be larger than food delivery. How large the business will become is different. But I think, as you would imagine, the number of consumers who want grocery or allied items delivered will be larger than the number of consumers who want restaurant food delivered to the doorstep.
Right. And Harsha, in terms of the competitive landscape, how is it evolving? There are, of course, two clear players in the food delivery space. What the market share is something that, gets reported, but we don't know what it is. But do you believe that the gap has widened between Zomato, Swiggy? Are you both at par? How do you view the competitive landscape?
No, I think we are in various categories and we don't comment on share numbers in any of these categories. But I think it's all the spaces that we are in is competitive, never a dull moment. There's so many more developments happening even in food delivery with ONDC, etc. So I think you have to keep inventing on behalf of the consumer.
Right. In fact, I was just coming to ONDC. A lot of people call it the UPI of e-commerce. And what is your ONDC play going to be?
At this point, it's still new and developing, emerging. More and more partners are coming on board. At this point, our strategy is to, learn the developments, keep watching them very closely on behalf of the consumer. And if there are more choices and this choice is turning out to be the preferred choice of the consumer, then companies like us have to adapt and learn how to serve them differently if this is how they prefer it.
Right. Harsha, also, I wanted to understand, in terms of focus areas for you this year, Swiggy has kind of steadily kept adding offerings to its app. It's, almost like a super app of sorts now. How do you envision Swiggy going forward? Are there still gaps that you would like to tackle? Where do you see the next, phases of innovation coming in?
It's interesting you say super app. We don't think about it that way. Swiggy brand is about, for us, the Swiggy brand stands for offering unparalleled convenience to urban consumers. So as long as it is serving the set of consumers who want it and it speaks to that need state, I think it belongs on the Swiggy app. As for these new explorations, etc., I think there's always new things being put out there. The strike rate of putting new things out there, like every year, at least 3-4 pilots are launched for consumers to see if this belongs in the future. Can this be a viable business? Will a large number of consumers want it? So to that end, even today, we have a host of pilots running like Swiggy Mall, insanely good, Swiggy Minis, etc. And as you would expect at this time, it's never clear before it happens that this is going to be a breakout business. Even with, let's say, a Swiggy Instamart business, we launched with Swiggy stores, which was just like food delivery, just delivering from neighborhood stores. But we couldn't crack the experience the first time around. And then that iterated and became something like Swiggy Instamart. We created the category at a time when it was not obvious that it should exist. So I think that such is the journey of wandering. And we continue to remain committed to wandering on behalf of the consumer. And I think the gaps will exist. I think we're at the beginning of this GDP per capita wave in the country. The next 20 years are going to be big. And I think there will continue to be opportunities that are very large and will also offer us a right to win. As long as it's aligned to the mission, is large and we have a right to win, I think we would love to play and keep exploring what the possibilities are.
Right. So where does Harsha spend a lot of his time these days? Is it with bankers? Is it with the independent directors? Is it with companies that are already publicly listed to figure out how to become a publicly listed firm?
All of that also, and then also looking inward. I think obviously most of my time is spent looking at the business, trying to understand opportunities where we can be getting better, what we're doing well, where to double down on. Yeah, most of my time is spent on the regular company affairs, on how we're doing this month, what is this quarter. Increasingly, I'm also getting the luxury to spend more time in the future, thanks to the management team that we have that's also doing a phenomenal job. So, yeah.
So you've built out the next layer of management. Is that also a key?
That's right. Absolutely.
And in terms of, the IPO itself, Harsha, I know you're not going to tell me about the timeline and everything, but 2024, will we see you listed?
I don't have anything to offer on the IPO at this point. As I mentioned, it's an aspiration. We've been preparing for it, even if you remember our 2021 interview. So we've added independent directors to the board, made the early...
Appointed bankers.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of preparations that are on, but nothing to comment on the timing.
Right.
Now.
But a broader question, what lessons do you take away from the first batch of unicorn IPO, say in 2021-2022? Because, 2024 is interesting because we are seeing the next batch of DRHPs, right? From Ola Electric to FirstCry to Unicommerce and so on. So what are the lessons from the first batch of unicorn IPOs?
No, I think there have been many, right? Until the first batch went out, even for us, we didn't have a good anchor on what a tech company IPO looks like in India. And I think there are so many that have gone out the door. Much to learn in terms of just how do you manage communication as a public company? How do you manage guidance as a public company? What gets more scrutiny? What doesn't? I think they're very educational. And they're all also a lot more relatable because these are companies and the odds are these founders. So it also means that now I have 10 folks that I can go to in case of any questions that I have. Sahil, for example, who took his company Delivery Public, is on our board. So I think there's a lot more relevant for startups kind of learning that we get from, let's say, the companies that have gone out.
Does it also help that there's already a listed food delivery company and that the public knows how to evaluate, how to understand another company which is food delivery, quick commerce, etc.?
100%. There's no denying that it makes life easier. It is. There are similar businesses. So it is for sure. I mean, not only like
Have you spoken to Dipinder on what's it like running a publicly listed?
when I meet him, I will ask. I have met him and I have asked him. So yeah,
What did he tell you? Any advice that he?
no, I have. Mostly just experiences from this. Not just Dipinder, but a bunch of these tech founders.
Harsha, I have to ask you about AI, and it was interesting in I think SoftBank's latest presentation. They had this slide about how Swiggy is already using AI. Can you tell us a little about that? Where do you see the use cases? Where have you already seen the use case?
Yeah, 100%. See, as a digital native, AI was already like one of the big foundations for how we ran the tech stack. The biggest applications were, of course, in helping personalize choices for consumers on the app, for deciding the delivery dispatch algorithms on our delivery network. So that was already something that was core to how we ran our tech and the experience. And in recent times, with the advent of GenAI, I think obviously there's a lot more work that we're now doing on that aspect. For example, again, it allows you to do much more high quality search experiences that weren't possible previously. And then we've launched our in-house LLM that enables restaurants to manage their operations easily, get a lot of easy self-serve, be able to shoot images for their menus so effortlessly.
You've launched the LLM when?
It's an in-house LLM. We've been using it.
Trained on the data that
That's right. It's obviously very relevant only for the Swiggy ecosystem.
Great. So what is Harsha doing for food in Davos? There's no Swiggy here. What are you ordering on? Have you tried any of the local food delivery apps?
Not yet, but if you have any good recommendations, let me know.
Great. On that note, Harsha, thank you so much for talking to Money.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.